What's up, guys? Mike the Cop, and I've been known to dabble in promoting and having a preference that all law enforcement officers, I think everybody, but specifically law enforcement officers should train in, my preference, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm not talking about just some place that puts on, pajamas and does ground karate and slaps on BJJ on a sign and thinks that that's good enough. I'm talking about a reputable training academy with a clear lineage and understanding of the traditional martial art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and its applications, both for the job and for just practical defense. The sport competition aspect of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is also something I'm fascinated with and enjoy, but that's not really what I'm talking about here. And yes, that's my preference, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but really any effective training, particularly grappling, I think, so whatever that is, there's judo, sambo, wrestling, and on the list goes. But grappling is really important because it's like 90 some odd, according to scientists and me randomly right now, what we have to do as police officers is really a more grappling situation when we're taking someone into custody, and especially if they're going to resist. So there's a tremendous advantage to the training as it applies to the law enforcement world, not only on and off the job for the law enforcement officer themselves, for their stress, for their health, but also when they're actually working and they need to use it. It's good for them, it's safe for them, it's actually better and safer for the person they're trying to take into custody or subdue or prevent from further attack or whatever the situation is. It's good for everybody, and it's actually a tool that can be used for de-escalation in situations where someone doesn't have a good toolbox for how to handle themselves physically. Those justified uses of force can escalate a lot faster. But someone who is confident and skilled in grappling, particularly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, according to my preference, can de-escalate those situations. And it's just a better all-around scenario. I go into a little bit more detail as to why I think that's the case on McDojo Life's show today. And if you haven't heard of McDojo Life, he has a YouTube channel. He has Instagram and Facebook. He's pretty much always the first Instagram account that I check in the morning because he posts these bullshit martial artists like this fake cultish stupid nonsense that's out there, like you're probably seeing on the screen right now, that you need to avoid at all costs, and it is so not practical in the real world. And so he's always good for a laugh, but he seriously is about keeping the martial arts legit. And he has extensive martial arts background and also trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, in addition to everything else that he has done. Now, he was kind enough to not only invite me on his show, but also to say, hey, take whatever parts you want and share it with your audience. So I'm going to link to all of his social media below, and you can check it out, follow him, subscribe. He's got the attention of people like Joe Rogan, have mentioned him on his show multiple times, because the content is it's great. It's gold. Just pure entertainment with a purpose. So I can't commend the channel and the content enough to you. This conversation took place for an hour. It was very casual. He asked a lot of questions about law enforcement, my experience, my thoughts on that. He shared his, and it was just kind of like two buddies catching up. But I will share with you this snippet that was specifically me answering this question of why I think it's so important for officers to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So drop your feedback in the comments. It's going to be a little bit compressed, the video, because it was I just ripped it off of a Facebook Live kind of a thing. So deal with it. And if you disagree, if you have shades of thoughts you want to add, take away, yell at me, hate me, love me, whatever, put it in the comments. All the engagement is welcome. It only helps. So that's it. Enjoy this, and I commend the full hour to you at the links in the description.
So just out of your opinion, you've been a cop for, you said 8 years?
About 10 years.
10 years. Okay. So you've been a cop for about 10 years. And during that time, I'm sure that you've had physical altercations with people.
Yeah. I wouldn't say countless, but a whole shit ton. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so what would you like? Obviously you're training jiu-jitsu now, but is that the art that you would suggest people would learn if they were having to deal with the job that you're dealing with?
1,000,000%. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even necessarily for primarily the reason a lot of people would think, which is technique, right? Like it's not even about that. There's very, very few things. Like you can't train like so many different things that may in their own right be effective, striking wise, or that you just can't train 100% person on person, like literally flesh on flesh, really train that at a maximum level in a safe way. So it for the law enforcement side of things, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu in particular, obviously, it allows you to have this full on, as hard as you want to go type environment that can really push you to your limits and truly, as close as possible, simulate the idea of complete physical exhaustion or difficulty in overcoming, that type of physical obstacle. And I think that is huge in and of itself, regardless of the techniques. So techniques are almost like tertiary in this, because the big thing is stress. Because what happens with the heart rate, and this isn't like mystical. It's like everything, the tunnel vision sets in. So whether the fight happens at the end of a pursuit and you're so like keyed in on this, your heart rate is super elevated, whatever is going on, every single faculty in your body diminishes the higher your heart rate goes. So the fine motor skills of whether it's firearms or impact weapons, or some of the techniques like the joint locks and things that cops learn will not work at a stress level that they would find themselves in, not because mechanically they won't work, but because your body will not do it under stress. So grappling like takes you down these pegs of stress, I think, to where I started finding myself in situations where we were trying to subdue a suspect or whatever with a lot calmer of a demeanor, a lot calmer of an approach, because of the confidence and control of that. And I'm so used to I got guys in my academy, the dude's like 290 and just smashing me, right? But now if I kind of get in a bad position or working something as far as trying to get someone into custody, I'm not freaking out about it. My heart rate is calm because it's not unusual for me to be in that situation. That to me is the number one reason why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is an amazing art for the law enforcement context.
It's funny that you were mentioning that. You're talking about like that basically forcing stress and putting yourself in those environments to where your body gets used to it. It's not scary anymore.
Right.
Like how I like to tell like people when I'm teaching jiu-jitsu or teaching them ground tactics is, like imagine somebody cuts you off in traffic and you get pissed off, like knee-jerk reaction, right?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen after you have like a 265-pound man sitting on your chest punching you in the face.
Right.
You're like, because at least you can go, nah, well, at least it's not that big ass dude punching me in the face.
Right.
Like you handle situations so much differently when you've been put in stress.
For sure.
And not only put in stress, but forcing yourself into stress. Like it's almost like this is going to suck, but let's do it anyway. Like I don't want to be choked. Like for instance, rolling with a black belt.
Yeah.
The first time I ever rolled with my professor was obviously it was the first day I came into the academy. And I have been doing karate for years. I was a 3rd-degree black belt in karate before I even walked in the door for my first jiu-jitsu class. And so I slapped hands, bumped knuckles or whatever, because at the end of the class, they were just doing sparring. It was like 10 minutes left. And we do like 2-minute rounds and we keep switching. And I wind up tapping out a white belt because I knew some basic submissions. No clue about jiu-jitsu, but just I knew what a rear naked choke was. I knew what an arm bar was. So I tapped out a white belt a couple times, and then he was like, all right, guys, switch. And then I got paired with a blue belt. Moved around. I actually tapped out the blue belt 2 times. And I was like, well, maybe this isn't the academy for me. Like, if I'm winning and I have no clue what I'm doing, that doesn't make any sense. I don't want to be here, Yeah. But then he put me with another white belt who had like a humongous wrestling background, and that dude just crushed me. Like, my soul left my body. Like, I was like, okay, I think I might want to stay. And then I rolled with the instructor, and he tapped me out. I don't know. He looked bored. Maybe 20 times. And he wasn't doing it to be a dick. I think he was doing it to humble me because I had already tapped out so many people before. He was like, look, those people are new. He basically could have been checking his cell phone while he was doing it.
Right.
Just but it put me into a position where I went from being really confident to being stressed out because all of a sudden I realized I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. And that experience was humbling enough to want to stay because it's like what happens if, hypothetically, somebody with better training than me in that area, even like a high school wrestler, got a hold of me? I would not know what to do.
Yeah.
And it just scared me to see so many law enforcement, even guys who come into the gym, you know, who have been cops for several years and have had no training.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what would happen if the standards were different in law enforcement? What would happen if it was mandatory? Mandatory. You had to take X amount of classes in jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, some type of art.
Yep.
I would suggest a grappling art, but I'm not a cop. I think it would really change the dynamic of how I think police officers are viewed in general. I really do.
Absolutely would. I think it has to change at a training, at an academy level. I think it really has to start there, or at least it would be the most advantageous, because what happens at the academy, it's stereotypical in the terms of just like a boot camp or whatever else. Like, they tear you down, right? And strip you of your ego, everything you think you know, and they build you back up. And what they're doing is they're trying to give you a mindset. They're trying to build you up with a mindset. Like, we had times in our PT classes, you physically can't do as many you can't do as many push-ups as they're asking you to do. Like, it was humanly impossible. It didn't matter, right? Because that wasn't the point. The point was, you never ever ever quit, right? You build this mindset, and like, almost like you're invincible. Fight, like the motto was like, fight, win, go home, right? Like, if it comes down to it, you know, you have to be prepared for this. So you build this mentality, which I think is good in a lot of ways. And it's almost like a false sense of security in another, though, if you don't give the skills along with the mindset. And that's where the failure is, because what happens is there's an ego issue. And I don't say that, again, like when I say ignorance or ego, I'm not talking about it necessarily in like, I think this guy's an arrogant asshole kind of a thing. Yeah. But there's an ego thing going on with cops that is necessary for them to survive and do effective work. But when, like, I've had buddies of mine, man, they go to the gym and, you know, they do their bench press and they feel accomplished and whatever, they're staying in shape, which I give them credit for. And they're like, hey man, you got to come hang out on the mats, you know, get them to open mat, get them to try a class. And all of a sudden, this skinny white 150 pound, or in the case of my professor, 137 pound Brazilian dude that's about 5'7", and he's going to make you feel like a child. And it's like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be a winner, right? And that moment is tough for a lot of cops, because they already went through this process of being torn down and built back up, and they don't want to go through it again. It's hard. Like, you spend 6 months of your life in this academy, and then another year of probation where you're getting trained on the job. And so by the time you've gone to college, you've gone to the academy, you've gone through probationary period, you've put a lot of time into getting where you're at. And then to be told, yeah, you got to kind of do this all over again to learn this skill. It's an ego issue. Yeah. But if they can hang through that early tough time, like you experienced, like I experienced, like anybody that comes in and
it sucks.
do it, yeah, like embrace the suck, right? Like, and then, so if they can get through that, then they almost get to kind of like have a healthy ego, like one that's in place, in check, you know. Yeah. Now I have the confidence to fight, win, and go home, and the skill to do it. And that's where so I think it's got to go to the academy level. And I definitely think it should be mandatory. That's for sure. Some type of thing like that. We did 1 day of ground fighting in the academy out of the entire academy.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. And, you know, I in no way do I want to be disrespectful to law enforcement, because I appreciate everything. I honestly feel you guys get a bad rap, but I'm going to get into that in a second. But I appreciate law enforcement. I appreciate the military. I appreciate anybody who's a first responder who has to put themselves in harm's way to make sure that all of us can live our day-to-day life. You know, that's kudos to anybody out there in the law enforcement. You guys have the balls to do what a lot of people don't have the balls to do, to be honest. You know, it's a stressful job, and people, I think, really, now, especially nowadays, attack law enforcement over and over and over again, because the internet is a huge turd of an environment to live, right?
Yeah.
It's just a hot garbage fire. And then every once in a while, something good comes by. And then every once in a while, well, more than every once in a while, something horrific comes by and we get to witness it. And then everybody has their opinions and comments without ever being in a situation like that. It blows my mind how
Yes.
motive can come in and be like, oh, that cop didn't do his job right. Have you ever been in that kind of stressful environment, Steve?
Yeah.
Have you ever had 30 or 45 people screaming in your face with a camera saying they want to kill you while you're trying to defuse a traffic stop?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of stress? And meanwhile, something else to add, maybe your buddy a month ago got shot and killed in a traffic stop.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have that in your head, and you have all these people who are adding to the stress. And then on top of that, you still have to do your job and remember the law and keep an eye out on the passenger who can't quite keep his hands in plain sight, and do all that and knowing that tomorrow it might be aired all over the internet and you might lose your job for doing your job. And that shit's infuriating to me. It's infuriating. Like, I don't know. Obviously, not every police officer is going to do his job well. Fuck. Right. Not everybody at McDonald's does their job well either. And that's the best company in the fucking world, right? So number one, like McDonald's, Walmart, two of the biggest.
I think there's been some dentists that have like knocked their patients out and had taken advantage of them too. So, but you probably still want your teeth cleaned.
Yeah. So yeah, you're like recording with a cell phone, your dentist as you pass out. I'm watching you.
I'm recording you.
5 people come in the room. Hey, what's up with those molars, man?
I think doctors and dentists should all have body cams so they can't take advantage of them.
Now, I do want to get into that a little.